This is an imitation of a minnow or baitfish. Fling and Puterbaugh in the basic manual of fly tying call it a hair wing streamer. I'm tying this on a number 6 3X hook. I'm going to be using bucktail for the throat and the wing. I'm going to be using silver tinsel for the body. The colors are variable depending on what minnow, what baitfish you're trying to imitate. The basic rule, if you want to call it that, is to put a light hair on the bottom for the belly and a darker hair on the top. You can use colors. I'm using natural bucktail in white and brown, but you could use dyed bucktail in a variety of colors depending on what you're trying to imitate. So I'm not putting down a whole base of thread, just a little bit at the beginning of the hook shank to tie in the tinsel. I am using silver tinsel. Recommended is silver for the belly imitation of the minnow baitfish, and I'm going to do touching wraps back to the hook bend and then forward again to where I've tied in. The touching wraps both directions help ensure that I don't have hook shank showing through, although I suppose that for fish they don't really care, but if you're tying for show, then you want to make sure that you have nice even flat wraps that don't show hook through. So touching wraps back to the hook bend, back up here to the tie-in point. Be sure to leave enough room in front where a head will be tied in with thread. So just tying off the tinsel. I did put some white bucktail in my stacker for the throat, because I kind of want an even end on that. I am going to invert my hook to tie in the throat. The throat is about the hook gap, or back to about the hook gap, or to the point of the hook. Tied in on the bottom of the shank. A couple loose wraps and then tighten it down. Now I've found that I need to pick that throat up and wrap underneath of it to try to get it so that it does flare down a little bit more, although again, how critical is that? I don't know. Will it catch fish? But I am going to tie underneath a little bit like that to try to pick that up so that it doesn't lay quite so close against the shank. I'm going to tie on the other side of it too, just to make sure that it doesn't come undone. And then I'm going to clip out all of this extra right down by the hook shank. And wrap that end in. Turn my hook back so that it's point down. I am clipping from this tail up here by the end of the tail. The Hair seem to be a little bit more uniform in their length. So this is not a heavy bunch, but I'm going to clip out a bunch of hair that I'm going to tie in on top of the hook for the belly. I am cleaning out the butts, and then I want that about a shank and a half long. You know, how long are your bait fish? So I'm going to loose wrap and then cinch it down and tie it in tight. I'm going to clip out all the front hairs here to kind of at the angle of the eye. So I am going to be tying in a head with the thread. Make sure I don't clip out my thread. So again, the general rule of thumb is that you want a light hair for the belly and then a darker hair for the top. So now I'm going to take, again, I have some fibers. It's kind of hard to find the longer dark fibers on the bucktail, but I'm going to clip some out right up here where these tend to be a little bit longer hairs. So I have a little clump, clean those out. And then I'm going to tie that in on top. A couple of loose wraps and then cinch it down. Get it nice and tight so it doesn't pull out. And then I'm going to clip all of this out again to create that tapered head. Take this stray. Turn the hook over and get what I need from the other side as well. And I find it helpful to look at both sides while I'm wrapping the head. That way I get everything covered. For some reason, it seems like the wrapping doesn't follow the same on both sides of the hook. So if you're only looking at one side, then you tend not to have good coverage on, oh, just broke my thread. Alright, just wind that back in. You can also take that old strand and twist them together with your new thread. It helps keep that tied in. Alright, and then I'm going to clip out these ends. And keep wrapping the head. Again, looking from both sides, that way I get good coverage. Hopefully. Then I'm going to whip finish this. I don't know what better to use for the eyes. I just found some paint that I'm going to use a pointy device here to put a little couple dots of paint. I suppose you could use, well, if you have white resin, that would be ideal. Through the power of creative editing, I have another hair wing streamer that already has the paint dry on the head. So I'm going to take and put a dot with a magic marker, Sharpie, in the middle of that eye. Turn that over. Do the same thing on this one. And then head cement. I'm actually using some UV resin that I will coat the entire head with. I'm using thin resin. Hopefully that'll soak down into the threads. That's the idea anyway, isn't it? The resin should help that paint and marker on the eyes to stay. A Fling and Puterbaugh hair wing streamer.